Punjabi Yasoda Nandana Brajajana Ranjana Yasoda Nandana Brajajana Ranjana Kamunatira Nachari Jaya Radha Madhava Punjabi Hari Jaya Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Vishnu Bhagavahan Prabhupada, AC, Dr. Buddhana Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai, Ramacharya Haridas Thakur Jai, Prem Sagaho, Sri Chaitanya, Prabhu Nityananda, Sri Advaita Gadadhar Swami Gaur Bhakta Jai, Sri Radha Krishna, Gopa Gopida Shama Kunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai, Sri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai, Navadip Dham Ki Jai, Ganga Jamuna Tulsi Bhakti Devi Ki Jai, Nanda Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai, Samaveta Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai, Go Premanandi, all glories to some of the devotees, all glories to some of the devotees. All glories to Sri Guru, Sri Guranga, all glories. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Namo Jaya Krishna. Bhaktivedanta Swami Nityanamane. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Prachadane. Desha Shunyavadi Pashtachaje Pradane. Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Sri Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Pray from Srimad Bhagavatam 10th Canto, Chapter 48, Verse 2. Mahar Opasakarair Ajam Kamopayo Brimitam Mukta Dhamma Patakabhir Nitana Shayan Asanai Dupar Sura Bibhir Dipai Sraggandar Api Mandatam. Maha expensive upaskaraya with furnishings, adyam, rich, kama, of lust, upaya, with accoutrements, upabringhitam, replete, mukta dama, with strings of pearls, pataka bhi, and banners, vitana, with canopies, shayana, beds, asanai, seats, dupai, with incense, sarabi, fragrant, ipai, with oil lamps, shrak, flower garlands, gandai, aromatic sandalwood paste, api, also mundatam, decorated. Translation: Trivakra's home was opulently appointed with expensive furnishings and replete with sensual accoutrements meant to inspire sexual desire. There were banners, rows of strung pearls, canopies, fine beds, and sitting places, and also fragrant incense, oil lamps, flower garlands, and aromatic sandalwood paste. Purport: according to Sridhar Swami, the sensual accoutrements of Trivakra's house included explicit sexual pictures. Srila Vishnu Chakravarti adds that her paraphernalia included herbal aphrodisiacs. It is not hard to guess Trivakra's intentions, yet Lord Krishna went there to save her from material existence. When Trivakra saw him arriving at her house, she at once rose from her seat in a flurry. Coming forward graciously with her girlfriends, she respectfully greeted Lord Achyuta by offering him an excellent seat and other articles of worship. Uddhava also received a seat of honor since he was a saintly person, but he simply touched it and sat on the floor. And then Lord Krishna, imitating the manners of human society, quickly made himself comfortable on an opulent bed. Purport: according to the Acharyas, Uddhava felt reverence for his Lord and thus declined to sit on an opulent seat in his presence. Rather, he touched the seat with his hand and sat on the floor. Srila Vishnu Chakravarti adds that Lord Krishna made himself comfortable on a bed located in the inner chambers of Trivakra's house. Trivakra prepared herself by bathing, anointing her body, dressing fine garments, putting on jewelry, garments, and perfume, and also by chewing betel nut, drinking fragrant liquor, and so on. She then approached Lord Madhava with shy, playful smiles and coquettish glances. It is clear from this verse that the ways of a woman prepares for sexual enjoyment have not changed in thousands of years. Calling forward her beloved, who was anxious and shy at the prospect of this new contact, the Lord pulled her by her bangled hands onto the bed. Then he enjoyed with that beautiful girl, whose only trace of piety was her having offered ointment to the Lord. Purport: Srila Vishnu Chakravarti explains that the words Nava Sangama Kriya indicate that Trivakra was, in fact, a virgin girl at this point. She had been a deformed hunchback, and the Lord had recently transformed her into a beautiful girl. Therefore, although clearly lusting after Krishna, she was naturally shy and anxious. Simply by smelling the fragrance of Lord Krishna's lotus feet, Trivakra cleansed away the burning lust Cupid had aroused in her breast, chest, and eyes. With her two arms, she embraced between her breasts her lover, Sri Krishna, the personification of bliss, and thus she gave up her long-standing distress. Having thus gotten the hard-to-get Supreme Lord by the simple act of offering him bodily ointment, unfortunate Trivakra submitted to the Lord, to that Lord of freedom, the following request. Purport: according to Srila Vishnu Chakravarti, Srimati Trivakra prayed to the Lord, "Please enjoy only with me and not with any other woman." Because Krishna was not prepared to grant such a benediction, Trivakra is described here as unfortunate. Sridhar Swami adds that although to ordinary eyes she seemed to beg for material pleasure, in fact she was a liberated soul at this point. Trivakra said, "O beloved, please stay here with me for a few days more and enjoy. I cannot bear to give up your association, O lotus-eyed one. Purport: the word ambu means water and ruha means rising. Thus, ambu ruha means lotus flower which rises from the water. Lord Krishna is called Amburu Ekshana, the lotus-eyed one. He is the source and embodiment of all beauty. And naturally, Trivakra was attracted to him. However, the Lord's beauty is spiritual and pure, and his intention was not to gratify himself, the Trivakra, but rather to bring her to the point of pure spiritual existence, Krishna consciousness. Promising her the fulfillment of this lusty desire, considerate Krishna, Lord of all beings, paid Trivakra his respects and then returned with Uddhava to his own supremely opulent residence. All the acharyas agree that the words Kama Varam Dattva indicate that Lord Krishna promised Trivakra he would fulfill her lusty desires. Lord Vishnu, the Supreme Lord of all lords, is ordinarily difficult to approach. One who has properly worshipped him and then chooses the benediction of mundane sense gratification is certainly of poor intelligence, for he is satisfied with an insignificant result. Purport: it is clear from the commentaries of the acharyas that the story of Trivakra is to be understood on two levels. On the one hand, she is understood to be a liberated soul, directly associating with the Lord and participating in his pastimes. On the other hand, her conduct is clearly meant to teach a lesson about what not to do in relation with Lord Krishna. Since all the Lord's pastimes are not only blissful but also didactic, there is no real contradiction in this pastime, since Trivakra's purity and her bad example take place on two distinct levels. Arjuna is also considered a pure devotee, yet by initially disobeying Krishna's instructions to fight, he also showed an example of what not to do. However, such bad examples always have happy endings in the blissful association of the absolute truth, Sri Krishna. So, this is the story, or the conclusion of the story of Trivakra. And previously it was described that her good action was that though she was servant of Kamsa, she offered some ointments, bodily ointments, to Krishna. And then Krishna made her beautiful and straightened her up, etc. And then consequently, this is the result, that even though it appears that her intentions were materialistic, so to speak, of displays of kama, the Lord agreed to satisfy her in all ways. As this last purport points out, the story has two aspects. One is the superficial aspect, where she is considered to be full of kama and not very qualified. And of course the other is that actually she's also a pure devotee, because otherwise why would Krishna associate with her at all? So, nevertheless, though we have these two levels, we also have the implication that her desire for Krishna was not exactly the same as the desire of the gopis. It was not on the same level, and therefore this is considered impure, and the gopis' desire is considered pure. But that also doesn't make sense on the spiritual level, because all the desires are pure in relation to Krishna. So what it means is that ultimately the intensity of the desire was much greater in the gopis and lesser in the example here of Kubja. So all these associates who are interacting with Krishna on a very high level. Now, some of them may not have such intimate association with the Lord. They're more distant. Others are closer. However, those who have Madhurya Rasa, ultimately they have to be closer than the rest. but still there is some who are more distant and some who are closer there also. So we have different grades of gopis, for instance. And here we have an example of Kubja, who the Lord satisfied, but then he left. And of course we don't hear much about what happened after that. Whether he went back or not, though he made some sort of promise to her to satisfy her. So, and at the same time, the description of her in comparison to the gopis is considered to be is less, is inferior type of person. So, nevertheless, as the Bhagavatam points out, one can approach the Lord in different ways. One can approach in hatred, one can approach with kama, one can approach as a servant, one can approach as with affection, as a relative or as a parent, etc., or as a friend. So in various modes one can approach the Lord. Some of these are not considered bhakti. So though when one approaches with hatred and fear, that is not considered bhakti, actually. But still, there is some result for that. So in the case of Shishupal, or someone like that, because of his concentration on the Lord, he got some good result when he got killed by Krishna. So even for a negative approach to the Lord, there is some result. But devotion means favorable. We have a favorable relationship with the Lord. We like the Lord. We don't hate the Lord. And based on that liking, then we approach the Lord in different ways, such as with friendship or with in different rasas, in Sakya rasa or Vatsalya rasa or Madhurya rasa. This is all favorable. So that is what is meant by anukulyena Krishna nosilanam. Whereas hatred is not anukulya. It is opposite. No liking for the Lord. So that gives some result. So similarly, within the favorable, then we will have intensity and we'll also have purity. So in sadhana, of course, we may have impurity, which means we have a mixture of other desires, material desires or desire for liberation. So this dilutes the intensity. As a result of that, then when we get purified by that. Even the demons get purified by their hatred, eventually, by concentration on the Lord. So if we're favorable to the Lord, but we do have material desires, we also get purified eventually. So this is why we can say that mixed bhakti or nama bhas, it purifies, but gradually. So if one has desires for material enjoyment plus desire to serve the Lord, and one continues to serve the Lord, trying to get some material benefits, one gets purified, and gradually the desires decrease and decrease and decrease. So that one will get a good result. One will get better than the demons that get killed because they approach the Lord in hatred, because they're doing favorably, obviously, though there's some mixture. But they should get less than those who perform pure bhakti, and they perform their bhakti without desires. So they're kind of in between. So, of course, we know that those who do pure bhakti get prema. And they get, dasya, sakya, vatsalya, madhurya. Those who approach the Lord with hatred, what happens? They may get mukti, or they may go to the spiritual world, but it's also described that their relationship with the Lord is not so strong. It's inferior to those who have approached with a positive attitude. So that is the case with those who practice mixed bhakti, favorable. They get better than liberation, definitely, but they'll get less than those who practiced pure bhakti. So the sadhana determines the result.
So that is why in Nectar Devotion, Rupa Goswami says that one has to do pure bhakti, uttama bhakti, rather than mixed bhakti, because the result will be prema, and of course bhakti rasamrita sindhu. And if we do mixed bhakti, we also go to the spiritual world and we get sarupya and salokya, but we don't get the whole ocean of rasa. So, nevertheless, they're not impure in the spiritual world. They've done mixed bhakti or whatever, namabhas, and they get to the spiritual world. So, of course, we talk about 5 types of liberation. So, getting a spiritual body, going to the spiritual world, getting Shashti powers. This is all part of liberation, type of liberation. So they get liberated, and at that point, no material impurities. But the relationship will not be as strong as those who've practiced pure bhakti. So thus we will get persons who go to the spiritual world and they have spiritual bodies, etc. But a relationship is distant and they don't serve the Lord directly. But they get bliss from the Lord and they meditate on the Lord, etc. But they're not always engaged in direct service to the Lord. So it's a distant relationship. And those especially who mix a little jnana with their bhakti, then they end up with shanta rasa. So it's a rasa, but it's shanta, which we say is neutral. It's no service again, not much service. So we see that when Krishna went to Mathura, then when he came into the arena of Kamsa, many people saw him. So the Vrishnis saw him as a worshipable Lord in Dasya Rasa, and his parents, Vasudeva and Devaki and Nanda Maharaj, saw him as their child, Vatsalya Rasa. The young girls saw him with Madhurya Rasa. The cowherd boys saw him with Sakya Rasa. And there were some yogis there, and they saw him in Shanta Rasa. So there are people in the spiritual world, like sages and others, and they have Shanta Rasa, and they appreciate the Lord because he is also Brahman and Paramatma and this and that. And they feel very peaceful when they see the Lord. Whereas others will feel different. The friends felt Sakya, and the women felt Madhurya Rasa, but these sages felt peace. So there's a variety of levels of intensity. Of course, the rasas themselves have various intensities, up from Shanta all the way up to Madhurya. And then within each rasa also, various intensities, from weaker to stronger. So we'll have a weaker type of dasya, and we'll get a stronger dasya like that. So we see here that Uddhava had very intimate dasya, mixed with a little sakya. But here it's described how he sat on the floor because of his reverential attitude as the servant of Krishna. And he was fulfilling Krishna's order by going to Vrindavan to give the message, etc. So he acted as a servant. So a very close relationship in Dasya. Yet others will be more distant. There will be ordinary servants in the palace and whatever. So less. And then, of course, in Vrindavan we'll get servants also. So Krishna has small little boys servant. He is older, they're younger. And they follow him and they do services for him, carrying his lunch or whatever, or carrying his different paraphernalia for his pastimes. So they have, obviously, a more intimate relationship than the servants in Dwarka or Mathura. Because they don't see him as Supreme Lord. So it's quite sweet. So we'll have, of course, intensities based upon place. Dwarka, Mathura, and then finally Vrindavan. So if we worship Dwarka Krishna, we go to Dwarka. If we worship Mathura Krishna, we go to Mathura. If we worship Vrindavan Krishna, we go to Vrindavan. So that is all determined by sadhana. What sadhana you do determines the result. So if we worship Vrindavan Krishna, we go to Vrindavan Krishna and Vrindavan. If we worship a Dwarka Krishna, we'll go to Dwarka. So the object and the nature of the object of worship will determine our goal. So sadhana very important for us. And of course, if we worship another form of the Lord, we go to that form. We worship Nrsimhadev, we go to Nrsimha. We worship Rama, we go to Rama. We worship Vishnu, we go to Vishnu. So the emphasis in our sampradaya is to worship Krishna rather than other forms. And in that way, the sadhana will direct us towards Krishna. And it's Krishna in Vrindavan, not in Dwarka or Mathura. So automatically then, we can say that the majority of devotees will end up going to Vrindavan in the spiritual world, not to Dwarka, Mathura, or to other forms of the Lord. So therefore, sadhana very important. And of course, then the other aspect is that we worship Radha and Krishna, Madhurya Rasa. So therefore, the emphasis is on Madhurya Rasa, the highest rasa in Vrindavan of all. And this is, of course, Lord Chaitanya's mission, to get all the fallen jivas of Kali Yuga to realize Madhurya Rasa. So the sadhana determines the result. So that is why we emphasize certain forms to worship. And then, of course, there's different modes of worship. We can worship with Vaidhi Bhakti, or we can worship with Raganuga Bhakti, both sadhana. And we get different results. So if we worship Krishna with Vaidhi Bhakti, Krishna in Vrindavan with Vaidhi Bhakti, we shouldn't go to Dwarka, but definitely we won't end up in the same place as Krishna with the Brajavasis, because they have raga, they don't have Vaidhi. Of course, the people of Mathura and Dwarka, there's some Vaidhi type of influence there. They have reverence for the Lord, they regard him as Supreme Lord. So it is described that those who worship Krishna in Vrindavan with Vaidhi Bhakti go to Aishwarya Goloka. It's not Dwarka or Mathura, it's also Vrindavan, but everyone there, the cowherd people, see Krishna as Supreme Lord also. So it's a mixture. Which is better, we can say, than Dwarka and Mathura, but not so intense as Vrindavan without seeing him as a Supreme Lord. So therefore with Raganuga, then you get to this seeing Krishna with this raga, with no interruption of awe and reverence, etc. So again, sadhana determines result. What form of the Lord, the ultimate destination in terms of place, the rasa, etc. And it's all determined by sadhana. And then the intensity, again, within that particular rasa, determined by the sadhana one follows, whether it's mixed or pure or whatever. And even among the pure associates, different levels. So among the gopis, different levels of intensity. Up until we get Radha and Krishna, Radha at the top. Or in Sakirasa again, we have different levels of sakas, and more intense, until we get the Priya sakas and the Priya Narma sakas, the most intense. So various levels of intensity also, and according to who we follow, then we end up with that intensity again in the particular rasa. So there's some choice there for the individual. So the sadhana, therefore, again, very, very important. So here we'll see various types of devotees with various intensities in their relationship with the Lord. So if we follow after a particular person as the ideal, then we'll end up with a similar type of intensity in our relationship with the Supreme Lord. But they're all perfect. The individuals are different jivas with different personalities, and they all have perfection in their particular relationship with the Lord in the different rasas. So we can never criticize one or the other. But objectively speaking, we can see that there's various grades of intensity of rasas and various intensities within the rasa, etc. And also according to the place.
We have the sadhana bhakti and bhava bhakti and prema bhakti. At really what stage the rasas begin to manifest? Because sadhana is only out of fear. Can we say it's the sadhana we have a dasya level and as it progress it goes to higher levels like madhurya?
So in bhava there is a realization of the Lord, and of course one's sthāyi bhava manifests at that point. That's what bhava means, the sthāyi bhava. Bhav bhakti. And it's composed of hladini and samvit shaktis of the Lord, his internal potency. So those manifest in the jiva in bhava stage, and one perceives the Lord and one's obviously relationship with the Lord, because we got hladini shakti there, which gives bliss in service. So this, but the sthāyi bhava is not rasa. We may have a madhurya sthāyi bhava or a sakya sthāyi bhava. That is not rasa. It has to mix with the sattvika bhavas, the anubhavas, the vibhavas, the vyabhachari bhavas, and then it becomes rasa. So there is some mixture in bhava stage, but it becomes complete in prema. So in prema, full rasa is experienced, whereas in bhava stage there's a weaker form of rasa there manifested, because the intensity is not so much and the realization is not so much. Well, yeah. If you have sadhana, if you have prema, there's no sadhana. But for us, in order to get to prema, we have to do sadhana. We have to start, unless one has kripa siddhi, and then one gets prema just by mercy of the Lord or a great devotee, which is very rare. So we have to do sadhana, and then we get bhava, and we get prema.
In the prema, although you can say that they don't follow sadhana, but their sadhana they follow, but it is spontaneous. Spontaneously they follow the sadhana, but not that they have to follow so many rules. Automatically the rules don't follow them in a prema level.
Well, even if one does Vaidhi bhakti, if one attains bhava, it is spontaneous in one sense. Because one has a direct relationship with the Lord, and one's not always thinking, I have to do this because of a rule and regulation. But at the same time, because of the sadhana of Vaidhi bhakti, then we have reverence for the Lord and regard him as Supreme Lord in that state. So there is some little restriction there in that spontaneous type of service, whether it is dasya, or sakya, or vatsalya, or madhurya, or whatever. But we don't call it sadhana in the sense that it's a practice to get, because the definition of sadhana is to attain bhava. So if you already got bhava, it's no longer sadhana. It's sadhana in the sense that it's activity. Sometimes we just use it as a general term, not as according to these sadhana, bhava, prema. For instance, we call the bhav bhakta asadhaka in one sense, because he still has to attain prema. But once he's in prema, we don't call him a sadhaka.
Take the example of Yamunacharya, he quoted the verse, that he was saying that there is so much rules, regulation there in a Vaidhi Bhakti, like even Sandhya Vandana, but he said, I cannot do any more this kind of things, now, because I'm relishing this rasa of Krishna.
That was not Yamunacharya, that was Madhavendra Puri, wasn't it? No.
Yamunacharya. Anyway, someone.
Yeah.
I think he was relishing the rasa, so I'm not able to follow this. So he was asking forgiveness for this.
Yeah. So yes, even in prema, if one is doing Vaidhi bhakti, etc., then if one attains prema, it is spontaneous. In that sense, one is not obligated to follow rules in the same type of way, interest in the material sense. But spiritually speaking, they may, for instance, in Dwarka, even Krishna follows sadhana in one sense, because he gets up early in the morning and he chants his Gayatri mantra and meditates on whatever, like that. Meditates on himself, actually. And then at noontime he does some daily activities. That's part of lila. That's not sadhana in normal sense, but they may follow what looks like a type of sadhana or karma yoga or whatever as part of the pastimes only. But they're not It's not because they have to follow rules and regulations to control their senses, not because of that.
Maharaj, our sadhana decides what we will achieve. And in Brahma Gauriya Madhav Sampradaya, our Sampradaya, they say we should worship Radha Krishna and Madhurya Rasa. But if you see ISKCON as on today, we only worship everybody like Jagannath Baladev, Radha Krishna and Aishwarya Bhav and Gauranitai also. So where the new sadhakas are heading to, where we are going to, we are not going to the way our previous acharyas wants us to go to.
Well, temple worship in one sense has some elements of Vaidhi Bhakti in it because Pancharatra by its nature is following rules and regulations of Pancharatra to worship the deity. So in that sense we do follow Vaidhi Bhakti. So in deity worship we follow Vaidhi Bhakti. In terms of hearing and chanting, then that is not restricted to Vaidhi. We can develop an attraction for hearing about Krishna's pastimes in Vrindavan. Then that is called Raganuga. To develop an attraction and hear about the pastimes of Krishna in Vrindavan, that is Raganuga sadhana. Of course, there's other aspects of Raganuga sadhana like Siddhadeha, etc. We don't generally do, but at least some parts of that Raganuga is kind of more or less implicit in our activities also. Even our Pancharatric standards are quite different from other sampradayas in the sense of the Vaidhi Bhakti is not so rigid as other groups like Sri Sampradaya, Madhva Sampradaya. The deity worship itself is a little bit different because it's molded for Krishna and Vrindavan rather than Vishnu Loka or whatever like that. So the type of services we do are also a little bit not so much Vaidhi Bhakti in that sense. Even in the deity worship, it's a less emphasis on the Vaidhi than other sampradayas.
We see the nature of the Daisarasa, like one thinking himself the lower than the person. So we see in the Vrindavan, like Vrindavan also there is a Daisarasa exist. So then how do they treat the Krishna? Because Krishna is superior. When you say Krishna is superior, means there is awe and reverence.
Where is superior?
In Vrindavan, if you say Goloka Vrindavan, I'm saying that, not the Aishwarya. When you say Krishna, when there is a because Daisarasa exists there in Goloka Vrindavan also. Because in Daisarasa, the nature of Daisarasa is that one see the Lord as a awe and reverence. Mm-hmm. But then how there is a equality in the Vrindavan? Because when they say awe and reverence, they say, he is a Lord.
Where? Aishwarya Goloka?
No, not Aishwarya, Goloka. They say, I'm saying that Vrindavan.
Vrindavan?
Yeah, Vrindavan. When we see Lord as with awe and reverence.
But they don't.
But in Daisarasa, the nature of the Daisarasa
they respect him, but Mother Yasoda sees him as her child and she punishes him. So in that sense, not awe and reverence.
But she's in Vatsala Rasa.
Yeah. And the Sakas see him as their friend, equal.
Yeah. But in
and they play with him.
Daisarasa?
Dasya, then they see him as master and they respect him, but they don't see him as Supreme Lord still. So there may be respect, but because of the nature of Dasya and whatever, but still they don't see him as Supreme Lord. He's just the master and I'm the servant, that's all.
A devotee leaves his body in a particular stage of bhakti like sadhana. So next life he'll be continuing from various left and he'll be elevating.
That's the general.
Has to continue again from the beginning.
Wherever he left off, he continues like that. As it says, Neha Vikramanasasi Prachavaya Navidyate. So nothing is lost. And whatever he's done is preserved. And it doesn't get expended at all. So whatever bhakti he's done, that stays with him. And he continues from that level in his next life.
What if somebody says that maybe he was in Bhava stage last life, so why should I go sadhana again?
Well, then it would manifest in this lifetime. And he would show symptoms of complete detachment from the material world and complete absorption in the Lord, etc. And you show satvika bhavas, whatever like that.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.